Hello everyone, my name is Tyranno Imperio. I'm a T-Rex VTuber for anyone who doesn't know me. Good to see you all here, hope you're doing well, and welcome to my Dino Fact on Ceratosaurus. Ceratosaurus is a ceratosaurian from Late Jurassic, North America, and Europe. At around 5 to 7 meters long, it's a mid-sized carnivore, definitely pretty large overall, but relative to its environment, it was mid-sized as, in both North America and Europe, it had to coexist with some pretty large carnivores, namely Torvosaurus and Allosaurus. Allosaurus in particular is pretty important for today's discussion. It's rather famous for being one of the most popular large carnivores of all time, even if in modern day it's kind of fallen off to megatheropods like Spino and Giganotosaurus, but still, its foothold in paleomedia is still about as strong as ever, showing up in recent paleomedia like the upcoming End of Oak Street, and is going to be showing up soon in Prehistoric Kingdom. And also importantly for this video, it's also gained a bit of a reputation for bullying Ceratosaurus in a good amount of paleomedia, particularly in the so-called documentary Jurassic Fight Club, to the point that unfortunately nowadays, it kind of feels like this is all Ceratosaurus really gets to be known for now, as unlike its famous cousin, Ceratosaurus hasn't been getting as many appearances in paleomedia, even ones that have Allosaurus in it. Heck, the Ceratosaurus that's most memorable to me in my childhood was literally used as a punching bag, even without Allosaurus being there. It never gets to use any of the move cards that dinosaurs are known for using in this show, and it gets one win that's probably like the most underwhelming win in all of Dinosaur King, and it doesn't get to participate in the big fusion move at the end of season 1 because the black T-Rex kicks it away like a soccer ball. And it was used for the first AI paleo art, quote-unquote, I ever saw. It does not get more disrespectful than that. And that's why I decided to make this video, to give Ceratosaurus some much-needed respect after how it's been treated over the recent years. But before I do that, I need to address something.
I'll be honest, I kinda don't like Allosaurus that much. It is a cool creature, but like, it constantly beating up Ceratosaurus in documentaries.
Well, screw you too!
Kind of like how people kind of swing the pendulum on how herbivores are treated as cannon fodder in media by going too far and acting like large herbivores are invincible and apex predators can't hunt them, and countering Spinosaurus being a T-Rex hunter by acting like Spinosaurus can't kill anything that isn't a fish. I definitely overcorrected. Hating on an entire species just because of one bad fictional depiction of an animal is not really cool, and Jurassic Fight Club just in general was bad with all its dinosaur depictions. As for When Dinosaurs Roamed America, that one's just a depiction of larger carnivore taking advantage of a smaller carnivore's hunts, which does happen in real life. And for the incident in Chaos Theory, bad dinosaur gets stopped by good dinosaur is just a trope that the Jurassic franchise uses a lot, and could also just be a reference to the paleo meme rather than straight up Ceratosaurus slander. So all in all, Jurassic Fight Club is the main weight bearer of all the Ceratosaurus slander. The others are kind of just unfortunate coincidences or references, and Allosaurus overall is still a really cool animal that deserves respect. And plus, it's also kind of had the same bad luck as Ceratosaurus every now and then, both in fictional media and even in educational media, although some of it can now be attributed to Allosaurus bullying itself, since Saurophaganax is now also an Allosaurus species, Allosaurus anax. But there's still also occasions where Allosaurus gets bullied by Torvosaurus, like in Dinosaur Revolution. And let's not forget that Allosaurus has the very special paleo meme of having the first fossilized evidence of a hit to down there. So evidently, Allosaurus doesn't have it easy either. So all in all, while this is a video meant to give Ceratosaurus respect, I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure it's also not an Allosaurus hit piece. With all that said, Now we can finally start talking about Ceratosaurus, and fittingly, a good point to start off why I think it's cool is its coexistence with other carnivores. In the Morrison formation, it had to coexist with 3 Allosaurus species and 1 Torvosaurus species. Then in the Laurina formation, it had 1 Allosaurus species, but then the largest Torvosaurus species, an early Carcharodontosaurid in the form of Lusovenator and Laurinosaurus. But in spite of all these larger carnivores in the area, it's important to recognize that Ceratosaurus was also not the smallest in either of its ecosystems. Ceratosaurus was still fairly large enough that it could reliably hunt the local herbivores, small, mid-sized, maybe even some of the larger ones, if it's lucky or if they're very injured or sick. And it could probably steal kills from some of the smaller carnivores to get an easy meal. It would only really have to be worried when coming across one of the larger carnivores. But if for some reason it did choose to fight one of them, there are instances of mid-sized carnivores fighting back against apexes. And Ceratosaurus is definitely large enough where I feel like by the end, it would simply just have to retreat with severe injuries or die. But it is large enough where if it's lucky against a subadult or an inexperienced individual, I think its tenacity could help it chase off the larger carnivore. So overall, in its local ecosystem, Ceratosaurus definitely wasn't just a punching bag, it just didn't have the privilege of being number 1. A lot of people like to nickname Allosaurus as the Lion of the Jurassic of sorts, and if that's the case, then I think it makes sense that Ceratosaurus, it's leopard. Both leopards and Ceratosaurus are found on multiple continents, alongside larger carnivores with similar body builds to them that could very easily kill them if they're not careful. But in spite of living with these larger apex predators, they're still able to endure and thrive as mesopredators, and in Ceratosaurus' case, all the way until the end of the Jurassic period alongside Allosaurus, and not dying out to Allosaurus like Jurassic Fight Club says. Although, thanks to recent events, there might be another cat that you could compare Ceratosaurus to. Upon first glance, Ceratosaurus doesn't exactly look like a saber-tooth when you compare it proportionally to Smilodon, but even so, Ceratosaurus' teeth were still pretty long in its own rights. Thanks to the Oswald and Curtice paper from January 2026, we were able to find that compared to other large carnivores in its areas, Ceratosaurus had the longest teeth, and possibly according to the paper, to combat the competition between all these species, Ceratosaurus might have used its teeth similarly to saber-toothed cats, by quickly ending hunts through a bite to the neck, therefore quickly ending a hunt and allowing themselves to eat more before they get their food stolen potentially. Probably didn't kick their prey like this though. On the note of the Kyoryu Wakase Ceratosaurus though, this depiction actually is surprisingly accurate for its time, namely because of its horns. You might be familiar with the Jurassic franchise Ceratosaurus or designs like it, where the horn is kind of depicted as more rhino-like. And not gonna lie, I do overall kind of like this design of Ceratosaurus, but it was a little different in real life. It kind of had 3 horns, the 2 ones in the back being more like eye crests rather than true horns, and for the nasal horn that most people actually care about, it would not have likely been strong enough to be used in combat based on recent papers. So then, if it couldn't be used for fighting, what exactly were its horns for?
Like so much of life, it all comes down to sex.
Yeah, Ceratosaurus might have been a little more flamboyant than you might have been expecting, utilizing his horns to identify other members of their kind, and probably also showing off to potential mates, meaning that its horns were probably a lot more colorful than some movies may have made you believe.
He's for display only. You handle him too much, he's not gonna last.
But not only was Ceratosaurus attractive to others of its kind, but Ceratosaurus was also pretty cool to old people. It's been a running gag in this series where when I talk about underrated carnivores like Carcharodontosaurus and most of the Abelisaurids besides Carnotaurus, a lot of them don't get the privilege of being in any movies. But Ceratosaurus has not only beaten them by decades, getting to show up in movies and educational media in the mid-1900s, but it was kind of an exceptional idol amongst dinosaurs for paleomedia of its time, because during this era, Ceratosaurus was kind of depicted as basically just a T-Rex with horns, meaning it could be used interchangeably with T-Rex, which was very good for its reputation at the time. It's certainly no longer accurate, but if you want to look into old paleomedia, or if you just really want to see Ceratosaurus get to do cool stuff, there's plenty of it in these. You can see Ceratosaurus do stuff it never would, probably in modern media, like killing a fully grown Stegosaurus all on its own, fight against another member of its species as its main competitor instead of other large theropods like Allosaurus or Torvosaurus. And heck, even in the movie 1 Million Years BC from 1966, like a T-Rex, you see a Ceratosaurus fighting evenly with a Triceratops. Basically, the treatment that Disney gave to their Carnotaurus, people were giving to Ceratosaurus on the daily during this time. As the years went on though, paleontology progressed and more about dinosaurs were discovered, and even though that's in general a good thing, for specifically Ceratosaurus' reputation in public media, the likes of larger carnivores like Allosaurus started taking up people's mind space, and Ceratosaurus ended up falling to the wayside, becoming more of a side dino rather than a main focus, which eventually kind of snowballed into the somber era of Ceratosaurus' reputation that we see today. Although not all is lost, thanks to weirdly this movie company called The Asylum that most people know about for making pretty terrible mockbusters. And their movie from 2013, Age of Dinosaurs, isn't really all that different. It has some pretty mediocre special effects, a lot of stock dinosaur models that have been used, and even for one of the two models that they probably made on their own, they did not do Carnotaurus justice. But the Ceratosaurus design, however, is not too shabby in my opinion. I already mentioned that I liked the Jurassic Park 3 Cerato quite a bit, and this one is a lot like that, but with a color scheme kind of like the Deadly Natter from How to Train Your Dragon. It also seems to, at least in some scenes, have lips that cover up its teeth entirely when its mouth is closed, which is pretty ahead of its time, honestly. I think that's pretty cool. And also in general, as someone who just sometimes likes to shut their brain off and watch dinosaurs do cool stuff in movies, by far the most fun I had in this movie was just watching the Ceratosaurus go haywire and cause such a ruckus in both inside the building area and the city. And what's interesting to me is that even though they had other large carnivores like T-Rex and Spino in the background, they actively chose to have this Ceratosaurus and their Carnoraptors, I guess, as the main dinos of their movie. I think it's just cool. Maybe they might have actually taken a note from old paleomedia and decided to make Ceratosaurus a main focus dino again, which I really respect. Maybe this is where all the Carnotaura went. But regardless, I think it's cool that the Asylum, of all people, managed to help show that Ceratosaurus, even a non-retrosaur Ceratosaurus, can still be a compelling antagonist for dinosaur media. Like, at the top of my head, I can imagine someone going full Peter Jackson and coming out with a Ceratosaurian that evolved into a megatheropod, or maybe for a documentary, like Dinosaur Planets, you could have a main character that's a smaller mid-sized herbivore that's being hunted by a Ceratosaurus, since they would be a huge threat from that perspective. Or you could break new ground and have a Ceratosaurus protagonist, like this indie series that might, emphasis on might, be coming out, hopefully, Dinosaur Empire. that follows the story of a trio of Ceratosaurus trying to survive in the Morrison Formation. We haven't gotten too much updates in a couple years, and apparently there was a bit of drama going on with some of the creators, but there also hasn't been an official cancellation yet. And apparently, according to some people, I don't know how reliable they are, but there are some people that say that work is still being done on Dinosaur Empire. I'm hoping that this is the case, or another indie project will follow in their footsteps, so that hopefully someday, Ceratosaurus can make its triumphant return to paleomedia and show people how interesting of a dinosaur it is. Not a punching bag, and not just a background element, but one of the coolest theropods of the late Jurassic. That's all I have for now, and thank you very much for watching.